At the celebration dinner, someone asked my boyfriend, 5 years ago you said you'd marry Vivian. Does that still count? The private lounge that had been buzzing seconds earlier fell dead silent. I heard someone answer, why bring that up? Ethan already has a girlfriend. Another voice cut in, everyone knows Vivian's the one he never got over. Ethan, we all get it, you haven't proposed to Zoe because of Vivian. I stood in the doorway, unable to step inside or back away. Because I wasn't Vivian. I was the current girlfriend who'd spent 8 years with him and still hadn't received a ring. His buddy spoke again, now that Vivian's back, why not just find an excuse to break up? Ethan didn't deny it, he simply lifted his glass and took a sip. In that instant I felt ice crawl over my skin, and a sliver of gratitude that I hadn't walked in. I pulled out my phone and answered Uncle's text. Uncle, I'll agree to the strategic arranged marriage. When Ethan called, I was already home. He sounded drunk and vaguely annoyed. Why aren't you here yet? I glanced at my watch, 2 full hours had passed since I'd told him I was almost there. I gave a bitter laugh. 2 hours, and only now did he remember me. I swallowed the sour wave rising in my chest and forced my voice to stay light. I'm not feeling great, so I came home. He just said, all right, and hung up. He never asked what hurt, never offered a single word of comfort. I stared at the screen until my eyes glazed over, and only then did the truth crash down on me. Ethan doesn't love me. The realization made tears leak out. I tilted my head, trying to dam them. How ironic. 8 years of devotion, and it was all my one-sided fantasy. I'd always told myself Ethan was just aloof, clumsy with feelings, so I orbited him like a son. I was the one who confessed first, who suggested moving in first, who volunteered to ride out his startup venture with him. He was cold and terse, so I showered him with sweet talk every day. I wanted him to know he deserved the greatest love in the world. When he launched his company, I secretly funneled my private savings to a fake angel just so he could believe someone saw his brilliance. I understood his fear of handing over his heart, how past wounds made him bristle like a porcupine. He could read me too, see past my bravado to the fragility underneath. I believed no one could ever love him like I did, and no one could understand me like he did. But reality just slapped me awake. 8 years of companionship couldn't buy a proposal, yet a 6-month first love earned his sworn oath. I'll marry no one but Vivian. Light as air, those words stabbed straight through my heart. Was that the real reason he wouldn't marry me? Outside, traffic surged and lights glittered. I had never felt so alone. I wandered the streets for hours and never went back to the place I'd shared with Ethan. The love nest I'd cherished was nothing but a joke I'd played on myself. I returned to the tiny condo I'd bought when I first came to Eastbrook and sat at the window, letting the bone-deep ache seep into every limb. I caught myself glancing at my phone again and almost laughed. I'd thought, even if he didn't love me much, he'd at least care that I was gone. Yet after an entire night away, not a single message arrived. Only then did I give up completely. The thought of ending us sent a dull pain through my chest. Scenes from the past flickered by, tiny, ordinary moments that fused into a tide and pulled me under. Ethan and I met in college. We barely knew each other until we pulled the same shift at a convenience store. Back then he'd just started dating someone. I never met her, but I knew the relationship meant everything to him. I often pitched ideas to help him cheer her up. To thank me, he quietly took on most of the drudge work. His girlfriend craved security and loved threatening breakups. Every time, Ethan had to humble himself to win her back. I was the backstage coach. I told him girls need reassurance, ritual, attention, mood swings come with the territory. Once, when she played the breakup card, Ethan's family imploded. For the first time he didn't rush to coax her. The next news was that she'd left for Europe. I happened to be there for the darkest stretch of his life, family death, girlfriend gone, boss withholding wages. I'd defied my parents by dropping art, and when they cut me off over Spring Festival, Ethan took me in. We spent that New Year together. In a crumbling walk-up in his hometown, we counted down to midnight under a dim bulb. Naively, I decided that although Ethan was tight-lipped, he was kind at heart. He gave me the only clean towel and walked me down long alleys at night so I could use the public restroom. When we had $10 left, he still bought me roasted flatbread because I drooled at the smell. After break we lost touch. Yet I kept flashing back to that fractured, tongue-tied Ethan. 6 months later I mustered the courage to chase him. He neither refused nor encouraged. My roommates consoled me, a girl chasing a guy only needs to poke the veil, no outright rejection equals hope. That fueled me. I was sure he liked me, why else be so nice? Later I understood, it was just his basic decency. It had nothing to do with loving me. Sleepless, eyes swollen, I memorized the taste of this pain so I'd never wander back. Reality leaves no room for romantic moping. Since I'd promised to marry for the family alliance, I had to erase every trace of Eastbrook. I called a realtor and listed my condo. Then I sped to the office. If I was leaving, resignation came next. Just then Ethan strode in with a tour group, radiant and full of swagger. I swept my gaze over them and locked on one girl. That stunning face had smiled at me from Ethan's wallet countless times. Vivian, his first love, was back. She trailed the crowd, yawning, straightening only when Ethan's eyes found her. I didn't miss the helpless fondness in his look. I stood quietly in the doorway. A perfect match, beauty and brilliance. So Vivien had returned. No wonder Ethan hadn't come home. I ignored the sting and walked in as casually as I could. Ethan stopped me, checked his watch, and frowned. 10:40, you're 40 minutes late, Zoe. Don't you even understand punctuality? I froze. He was calling me out in front of everyone. Sorry. He wouldn't let it go. If you can't show up on time, maybe you should find a job that fits you better. He spun on his heel and led the group away. I heard Vivien mutter, "Hey, why so harsh? Isn't she your wife?" Someone behind her answered, loud enough for me, "Wife?" Nothing signed. Some people just throw their girlfriend weight around the office. It was Ethan's partner, his buddy. Ethan said nothing. I tugged the corners of my mouth. In all these years, he had never once defended me. At noon Ethan I messaged, "There are board members in today's tour." I found it odd, Ethan never explained himself. I shrugged it off. A call followed lunch? Since I needed to break up, I agreed, then heard a girl coo, "Ethan, I want just you. Why invite anyone else?" He hesitated. "How about I DoorDash you something? Vivien wants French, you wouldn't enjoy it." I answered calmly, "When you're free, let me know. I have something to say." Feeling guilty, he added, "I'll bring back your favorite cupcake." I smiled faintly but didn't answer. By the time work ended, the promised cupcake still hadn't arrived. Was I actually crazy about that cupcake? Not really. I just felt a dull ache of realization, how blatantly love and indifference announce themselves. Before clocking out I emailed HR my resignation letter. She hovered by my cubicle several times, swallowing words, then finally mustered the courage, "Should I explain to Ethan that you were actually on leave today?" I skimmed documents while replying. "No need. My resignation isn't about that." She parted her lips, sighed, and said, "Then I'll process it the normal way and report to Landon." Landon was Ethan's partner. Someone at my level didn't need Ethan's sign-off anyway. I nodded with a smile and watched her leave, thinking, even if he finds out, so what? That night I went back to my tiny apartment. At 9 my phone chimed, "I've got something tonight, won't be home." I didn't reply, I was busy boxing up my life. When I finished, I remembered half my belongings were still at Ethan's penthouse, so I hailed a rideshare to the Vance building. It was past 11 by the time I was done. There was too much to take, I could only bring the essentials. I stared at the glass wall of gifts, every trinket Ethan had hauled back from business trips. In the early years, when Vance was still a garage startup, he'd squeeze pennies just to buy me the best he could afford. I told myself it was the sincerest love a tongue-tied man could give. But tonight, seeing the sapphire bracelet glittering on Vivian's wrist, the last ember died. I'd drooled over that piece for 2 years, balking at the price. Ethan had vowed, once we're listed, I'll snag it for your birthday. Now it circled her arm. Wherever a man puts his money, there his heart is. The trinkets on that wall totaled maybe a couple million, less than a single sapphire on her chain. December wind knifed through Eastbrook as I waited for the moving van, scrolling TikTok to kill time. I landed on Vivian's fresh post. Tipsy, she whispered, back then you said you'd marry no one but me, does that still count? Another long hush, then a girl's sob, if you can't marry me, then love me, cherish me, treasure me. A man's hoarse answer, all right. So romantic it hurt. I replayed the clip a dozen times. Snowflakes slid under my collar, my frozen thumb stabbed the screen until it finally double-tapped. The driver arrived late. Seeing my white face, he stammered, Miss, why didn't you wait inside? I smiled. Cold keeps me clear. Since I was leaving, everything needed wrapping up fast. Next morning I marched the brand team into a pitch meeting with our agency. The door burst open, Ethan strode in with Vivian. Meet your new director of operations. From today the brand team reports to her. I twirled my pen, laughed under my breath. Years ago the C-suite lobbied for me as ops director, Ethan vetoed it. His excuse afterward, too junior, still learning the business. That sentence had me settling for brand supervisor at a subsidiary, doing the director's workload without the title. 3 more years of that earned me the manager badge, same grind, shinier name tag. Ethan's rationale? Handing me the corner office would scream nepotism because I was special. He swore every refusal was for my own good. Now Vivien waltzed in and snapped up the title I'd bled for, becoming my direct boss overnight. I thought Ethan was different, the kind of CEO who cared about fairness for the rank and file. Looking back, the joke was on me. Maybe the mockery in my eyes stung, his gaze snapped to me, brow creasing, pupils icy. Manager, objections? I met him levelly. None. Hope is what breeds resentment, when hope dies, so does the ache. His brow knotted into an angry V. He sliced me another glare and said irritably, if you're upset, say it. No need for theatrics. Vivien peeked at me, then at him. I'm new, manager's dislike is understandable. Ethan, go ahead. I'll handle this myself. Ethan adjusted his glasses. Vivian's young, but she majored in this. She's technically more qualified. And if she stumbles, I'll catch her, don't I always? Open favoritism, clear as day. Everyone in the room could read between lines. I sipped lukewarm coffee and marveled, even Roboto plays favorites, just not for me anymore. I glanced at my watch. Ethan, this is our brand agency pitch. If you'd like to listen, take a seat. The room's booked till 11. You've burned 5 minutes, 5 agencies left, tight schedule. He rapped the table with long fingers, slow and deliberate, the rhythm ringing like a warning on my ribs. Fine. He sat, Vivien beside him. I kept the host chair and signaled the agency to continue. To flex expertise, Vivien peppered the presenter with inane questions. The rep stayed polite, answering every one. Half an hour blown. Our internal Slack exploded. Seriously, this is our new director? OMG, that question was painful. Not 10% of Zoe. I peeked at the thread and smothered a grin. What should have wrapped by lunch dragged into the afternoon. Every vendor we favored got shot down. Vivien preferred the underdog. Staff grumbled. Ethan ended the fight by rubber stamping Vivian's pick. I watched in silence. Later Ethan cornered me. "Zoe, you're mad?" We were alone in the conference room. He tapped the table again, same unhurried cadence. "Arguments bores me, so does drama." But looking at him, I felt only exhaustion. I pressed my temples and spoke calmly. "What exactly do you mean, Ethan?" Something in the question flipped a switch. His smile vanished, his mouth thinned to a cold slash. "This attitude, what's with the hostile edge? Springing Vivien on you was my bad, but you don't have to be venomous." I asked where I'd been venomous. He ignored it, disappointed. "You're only pushing me further away, you know." His buddy's words resurfaced. Vivian's back, might as well cut Zoe loose. So this was his exit ramp? My phone pinged. HR approved my resignation on Ding Talk. I pocketed it and met his eyes. "Ethan, I'll watch the Kilauea sunset by myself." He frowned. "What?" "I'm saying we're done. Let's break up." He stared, stunned. "Do you even hear yourself?" I stood, calm. "This time it's real. Let's part amicably." For years I'd coaxed him through fights, apologized first, let him keep the high ground. He'd grown used to my capitulations. He hated explaining, so he never did. He hated mess, so he never soothed. Misunderstandings piled up while I quietly digested them. "I'm tired now. I've lost interest in maintaining us." Panic flickered in his eyes before he steadied himself. "Quit the drama. You want marriage, I told you, not this year." "I'm swamped." "Next year, when things calm." I stared without expression. So he knew all along I craved a stable promise, just pretended not to notice while time slipped by. I found myself ridiculous and laughed softly. "Your wedding date is your call." "Me? I'm getting married this year." He scoffed, as if I'd cracked a joke. "Seriously? Zoe, you're 30. You honestly think you'll land anyone better than me?" So he knew I'd turned 30. He knew I wasn't young anymore, yet he kept squandering my youth without a second thought. I lifted my head and stared at him coldly. "So you do realize, you wasted 8 years of my life." Luckily, I'm still smart enough to turn back before I hit the wall. When I finished, I turned and walked away. A hand caught mine. Behind me came Ethan's hoarse voice. "Zoe, I can pretend I never heard any of that. I'll give you 3 days to regret it." That patronizing tone again. I laughed, pulled out my phone, and blocked his number and WhatsApp right in front of him. "Ethan, this time it's really over." Ethan's point of view. Ethan had never imagined Zoe would break up with him. More precisely, he hadn't believed she could. How much Zoe loved him, he knew. Later, when everyone was saying Zoe was engaged, he only chuckled. Zoe, engaged to someone else? Pure shock tactics to force him to the negotiation table. Day 1 after the split, he did feel a flicker of unease. But when he returned to the condo they'd shared, her presence still lingered, the faint trace of her perfume, the coffee mug she favored. She'd taken almost nothing, just a few daily necessities. All the expensive gifts he'd given her, however, remained exactly where she'd left them. At that moment Ethan told himself she'd be back. Once she realized her mistake, she'd return on her own. What he felt for Zoe, he supposed, was more guilt than love. He couldn't give her a whole heart, nor the companionship she deserved. He kept thinking, next time she mentions marriage, he'd slip the ring he carried out of his pocket and slide it onto her finger. In the first month after the breakup, he acted as if nothing had changed, still working, still flying out on business, only now he kept Vivien at arm's length. He worried that if Zoe came home and found another woman in his orbit, she might misunderstand. By the second month, the handbag wall was gray with dust, and a prickle of dread crept in. A bag lover like Zoe would never let her darlings sit under a film of grime. Which meant, maybe she truly didn't want them anymore. Not the bags, not the jewelry, and certainly not him. The instant that thought surfaced, a familiar restlessness seized him. He wanted to drown it in whiskey, and just then Landon called him out for drinks. Landon had been in high spirits for months, looking like a groom-to-be, while Ethan's eyes were bloodshot, his soul half gone. "Bro, you can have any woman you want. Freeze her out a few months, she'll come crawling." For the first time Ethan wondered, why hasn't Zoe figured out she's wrong? She'd never been able to endure the silent treatment. In the past, 3 days of Cold War and she'd show up at his door. This time, how had she held out so long? In the third month he overheard some of her old coworkers chatting, "Zoe's married." Panic blindsided him. He even began to doubt. Would she actually come back? What if she never turned around? The possibility hit him like a gut punch. He couldn't sleep, night after night he stared at the ceiling. He tried calling her, her number was disconnected. He opened a ticketing app, only to realize he had no idea where her hometown even was. He knew nothing about Zoe. He had really, truly lost her. For the first time he tasted the raw, metallic flavor of loss. A man accustomed to steering every variable of his life now discovered one stubborn truth: love refused to be managed. Something vital was being ripped from the flawless timeline he'd drafted for himself, and the ache it left behind throbbed like a bruise. At midnight he phoned Landon. "Are Zoe's onboarding documents still in HR?" Landon laughed softly. "Oh, those? Shredded ages ago. Sometimes I really hate you. Every time I watched you run around for Vivian I thought, who the hell do you think you are?" Ethan was stunned. "You like Vivien?" Landon snorted. "That shallow drama queen? Not my type." Ethan went silent. Yet it was exactly that shallow girl who, years ago, had bartered herself for a $50,000 bride price to save his grandmother, handing every penny to the hospital. Vivien had done him that kindness, he couldn't simply abandon her. Landon chuckled. "Know what? Zoe was at the IPO after party. I spotted her, then delivered my little speech. The line, 5 years ago you promised to marry Vivien. Does that still count?" had been aimed straight at Zoe's ears. Ethan frowned. "Why would you do that? Why? Get real. I pursued Zoe before you even noticed her. Why did she pick you? Now that you two are done, I can finally breathe again." "Oh, and the 50 grand bride price sob story?" I coached Vivien through the script. She did study abroad, all right, and cycled through plenty of foreign boyfriends. Never married some sugar daddy. Ethan staggered back and collapsed into a chair, face drained of color, hands trembling. "Landon, I treated you like a brother." Landon's expression stayed flat. "If you'd really seen me as a brother, you wouldn't have moved in on Zoe. You knew how I felt. And after you got her, you didn't even value her. Who's to blame for that?" "Landon." He snarled, flung the covers aside, and was cut off by a lazy laugh. "Ethan, fun's over. I'm going home to chase her for real." The Cross and Sterling families had been friends for generations. Back then Landon had followed Zoe south only because she'd chosen a university below the Mason-Dixon line. Yet one winter break was all it had taken for clueless Zoe to pledge her heart to someone else. The more Landon thought about it, the darker his gaze at his roommate Ethan became. What he hated most was himself. If he hadn't asked Ethan to look after Zoe, none of this would have happened. My third month back in Kingsport, I ran into Landon at a cocktail reception. My former boss, Ethan's so-called best bro. My gut clenched the moment I spotted him, just my luck. He, however, looked delighted. Zoe, long time no see. I lifted my glass in a half-hearted salute. Something on your mind? A teasing glint flashed across his eyes. Don't tell me you still haven't moved on. Same old reverse psychology. Ethan's buddy had never masked his hostility, his stare was peculiar, every sentence laced with barbs. I twirled the ring on my left hand, tone casual. Not a chance. Only then did he notice the band. His face drained white. You're engaged? I shook my head. Engaged? Not quite. I'm married. He actually stepped backward, a dry laugh rattling out. Come on, you're joking, right? Someone draped an arm across my shoulders. What are you saying to my baby cousin, Landon? My older cousin had wandered over. Landon pointed, voice cracking. Your cousin's pulling my leg, claims she's married. Hilarious, huh? My cousin laughed along. Where have you been? Last month the Hawthorne wedding was plastered across every society blog in Kingsport, bride's name was Zoe. Landon's vision tunneled, he had to steady himself against a pillar. The Hawthorne nuptials had been headline gossip, he himself had left a quip on Adrian's post, whoever lands Hawthorne is one lucky woman. Now he knew, the lucky woman was Zoe. Landon forced a smile uglier than a grimace. Zoe, then, congratulations. Weird. I didn't bother answering. The Hawthorne-Sterling alliance was common knowledge in our circles, I had no energy left to decode his sarcasm. Probably mourning for his bro. But I no longer cared. On impulse I turned back. Actually, I should thank you. If not for that sentence of yours, I wouldn't have gotten over Ethan so fast. Those words had been the final push, I'd agreed to Uncle's strategic arranged marriage proposal. Landon's complexion turned from white to translucent. He tried to smile, tears rimmed his eyes instead. Zoe, you really don't know a thing. My cousin sensed the awkwardness and clapped Landon's shoulder. Cross, you're in town, drinks tonight, yeah? I strolled away, glass in hand, missing the half-laugh, half-moan at my back. 2 days after I returned to Kingsport, Uncle summoned me to the Sterling mansion. The groom was ready-made, my cousin's former fiancé. My cousin herself had bolted a month before the engagement to chase true love, leaving Uncle flustered and the Hawthornes uninformed. Uncle escorted me to the Hawthorne estate to apologize. The families could either call everything off, or swap in a new bride. Adrian's parents greeted us, expressions frosty but civil. In the end, the decision rested with the party concerned. The young Hawthorne, vacationing in Europe, sent back a single line, whatever. After weighing the optics, the Hawthornes swallowed their pride and accepted the substitute bride. Compared with my rebellious, headline-making cousin, I was, apparently, a sterling upgrade. At least I hadn't smashed the old lady's favorite vase the moment I walked in. When Hawthorne saw that I had manners, her expression finally softened. She clasped my hand and smiled gently. Relax, my son is a workaholic, he's never free enough to chase women. That made me feel even better, husband with money and no time at home? That's rarer than spotting a unicorn. 3 months into the marriage, I'd met Adrian twice, once at the engagement party, once at the wedding. Both times were a blur, so rushed that we still hadn't exchanged WhatsApp. All I knew was that Adrian looked refined and mild, pale and harmless. Back in Kingsport, I settled into the ordinary life of a wealthy housewife. Spa dates and shopping with my girls, life was pleasantly lazy. When the credit card bills started landing in Adrian's inbox one after another, he surprised me with a call. My hand was still on a model's thigh when the phone rang. The voice in my ear was ice cool. Hello, I'm your husband. I found it absurd. I'm your father, get lost. Minutes later the card declined, and the same number flashed again. Ready to listen now? It's Adrian. I lowered my foot from the model's lap and sat up straight. Oh, honey, it's you. What's up? He sighed. Don't use that card on male models, okay? Year-end audit's coming, awkward for everyone. Silence. At the wedding, his mother had slipped me a supplemental Amex, said Adrian's, told me to swipe away. I never imagined it came with strings that short. His tone stayed flat. My assistant will drop off a fresh card tomorrow. But, Hawthorne, play, don't stray. No cheating scandal jokes. I laughed. Generous of you, babe. I'm just seeing the world. He chuckled, half-hearted. Zoe, come home early. Honestly, I couldn't be happier with this husband, loads of money, zero lectures, no interference with my models. Whenever I posted lifestyle pics, ex-coworkers commented below, manager left Ethan and discovered the sky's still blue. Someone's jealous, won't say who. After 6 months of fun I got bored and launched my own startup venture. I'd toyed with a beverage idea, the family had resources, so I spun up a new brand. The Hawthorns saw it as a hobby and stayed out of it. The Sterlings, however, hated the idea. Zoe, taking care of Adrian and his parents is your job, don't lose sight of priorities. I smiled. My mother-in-law says I should hustle while I'm young. That shut them up. Suppliers were down south, so I caught a flight to meet them. Never expected to run into Ethan at Eastbrook. He'd lost weight, his face haggard. Surprise flickered in his eyes. Zoe, are you okay? Only 6 months had passed, yet it felt like a century, the hurt had faded. Looking at him now, he seemed plain and unfamiliar. Something you need, Ethan? I regret it, Zoe. Can we talk? He tugged my sleeve, loneliness written all over him. Travelers stared. I pressed my temples. There's nothing left to say. I peeled his hand off, expressionless. A decent ex stays dead. Understand? He opened his mouth. Sorry, I thought guilt was all I felt, but these months are all I think about. When I heard marriage rumors, I couldn't sleep. I won't let it happen. 8 years, Zoe, you must still care, right? Let's try again, maybe we just needed more time. I laughed out loud. Ethan, life doesn't sell rewind pills. Love isn't fixed by, I'm sorry, let's redo. I didn't miss the regret flashing across his eyes. But we had chance after chance, and you never took a single step, the favored always feel safe. I lifted my left hand, the ring on my 4th finger glittered. Also, the rumors you heard are true. I married months ago. You're so arrogant. Did you assume I'd wait forever? Life isn't fiction, nobody stands still. Next time you date, skip the chase the wife fire drill. I turned and walked away. Ethan stood frozen, her perfume still in the air. He fought for control, yet his mind replayed the chill in her gaze, cold, distant. That moment he heard the shattering wails of his own heart. Before coming he'd braced himself, no cost too high to win Zoe back. But she said there was no path left. This time, she truly didn't want him. He clutched his chest and wondered, so this is heartbreak? It hurts. Zoe, how did you survive this all those years? Ethan's life had been too smooth, he thought anything he wanted would eventually be his. He never realized that once someone gives up, there's no turning back. The business trip soured fast. The moment I landed, Mom Sterling called. Zoe, Adrian's hurt. You should come home. I sighed and told my assistant, book the next flight back. Hard to enjoy Hawthorne perks while ignoring my nominal husband. I reached the hospital empty-handed, so I grabbed a bouquet at the entrance. Third meeting with my bargain husband, he sat in bed, looking at me strangely. I set the flowers on the nightstand, calm as ever. Hey, hubby, How's the hand? He colored, pale cheeks flushing. Sorry to trouble you. I didn't mean for Mother to find out. I hear you're launching a startup, let me know if you need help. Seems my husband is rather sweet. I smiled for real. Just messing around, but if you're bored you could glance at my pitch deck. A business prodigy, Adrian rarely backs a loser. With one sentence he could save me years. He started smiling, but his face tightened page by page, ending in a long sigh. Hawthorne, your slides are pretty. I widened innocent eyes, waiting. That's it? He chose words carefully. Your strengths aren't highlighted, and the target segment's fuzzy. Decide who this is for. If you were them, what would you most want to see? Watching him wrestle with diplomacy cracked me up. They say you're brutal, once made 5 assistants cry in a day. He side-eyed me, about to deny, then admitted it was true. Chat less with Pa next time, it's bad for my image. I grinned. But I don't even have your number. Intel on you comes from Pa. I must be the only wife still without her husband's contact after 6 months. Guilt flickered, he grabbed his phone. Sorry, traveling non-stop, I forgot I'm married. I'll do better. I gave him a maternal look. Darling, please stay exactly as you are, hot, loaded, low maintenance, rarely home. I love it. I squeezed his hand magnanimously. Work hard, babe. I can take care of myself. After scoring enough good wife points, I swung by the Sterling estate. Hawthorne greeted me, apologetic. Hope I didn't interrupt, Zoe. I overreacted, Adrian's fine. She can say that, I can't believe it. I smiled. I visited, doctor says rest and he'll heal. He had no clean clothes, so I'm bringing some, plus soup from home. Her face relaxed, she pressed a card into my palm. Thoughtful girl. Adrian's lucky to have you. I murmured thanks and applauded my own acting. Adrian, it seems, is hilariously bad at people. Since I had nothing better to do, I teased Adrian whenever I was free. He blushed at the slightest provocation. Adrian, you make people want to bully you. By now he was numb. Sighing through his physical therapy reps, he begged, go to work, okay? Don't make me plead. He pulled out a card and pressed it into my palm. Launch your startup venture, go big. I'm bankrolling you. Just stop playing with me. I grinned so hard my eyes curved. Hubby, you're the best. But you're still in hospital, I can't relax. He waved me off. I'm discharging myself right now. So much fun. Next time I'll do it again. The moment he checked out, I raced off to visit a supplier on a business trip. The plant sat in a tiny town. After 3 connections I finally arrived. Luckily the facility was huge and spotless, able to manufacture everything we needed. 2 days later the contract was sealed and I booked the first flight back. Rain kept intensifying until the whole county felt drowned, the sky pouring like a cracked dam. The plant manager eyed the downpour uneasily. Manager, why don't you and your team stay a few more days? Tomorrow was Hawthorne's birthday. I shook my head. I have to get back. Helpless, he arranged a car to the high-speed rail station, but minutes after we set off the road ahead collapsed. The driver panicked, whipped the sedan around, and sped back. That night landslide alerts flooded every phone, signal became a luxury. It was the closest I'd ever come to disaster. At first fear crashed over me like a tide, jangling every nerve. Yet when wave after wave of exhausted survivors were ferried into town, I couldn't sit still. I dragged myself into the relief effort. Wails and curses overlapped, despair thickened the air, and my mood sank with it. By the 3rd day without water or data the rain had eased and people calmed. I was sitting on a school corridor bench, staring at the drizzle, when a silhouette lurched toward me through the mist. A black poncho clung to him, pant legs rolled high, bare feet caked in mud, the hem splattered, utterly bedraggled. I watched warily until he lifted his head. Cool, clear eyes met mine. "Ethan." A raindrop slid down his cheek the instant he saw me. His voice was hoarse. "Zoe, I'm taking you home." I couldn't name the emotions surging through me, only that they were overwhelming. In this blackout backwater, rescue vehicles still nowhere in sight, he had appeared without warning. He said he would take me home. I stared at his outstretched hand for a long time. Water everywhere, Ethan carried me on his back, stumbling forward step after step. However rough the path, he never considered putting me down. Only then did I realize I did hate him, so deeply buried I'd fooled even myself. I hated him for wasting 8 years of my youth, for remaining unmoved, for forever wavering. But looking at this silent man, I suddenly let go. He simply hadn't loved me. Still, his character was decent. Which meant my taste wasn't that terrible. I asked about Vivien, reluctant. He answered every question. I sighed. "You really are blind. You dumped me for someone like that?" He gave a soft laugh. "That's people, right? Keep missing, keep regretting. Truth is, I did love you, I just didn't know it. 20% advance equity, no strings. All my real estate holdings transferred to your name. You know what that means to someone who's always been broke? It means I'm handing you most of my net worth. Yet why does it feel like guilt money, compensation? Sometimes I wonder if you gave me so much security I assumed you'd never leave." I was quiet a beat, then murmured, "Scumbag. Every time you refused to explain, another knife stabbed me." He said nothing. A tear landed on my hand. "You're crying?" "It's rain," he answered. He apologized. I curved my lips. Not every mistake deserves an "it's okay." I won't forgive the woman I was 6 months ago. Because back then I loved you. Now I can face all this only because I no longer love you. That's all." He chuckled. "On my way to find you I ran into your husband. Bandaged up, he was still sprinting into the rain. I told him I'd get you out, but only if he paid 10 million. Without a second's hesitation he agreed. He said once I brought you back he'd make me his sworn brother, that he'd call me Big Bro. He doesn't know I'm his rival, that I'm still shameless enough to steal his wife." I couldn't help laughing. It was exactly the dumb thing Adrian would do. After more treacherous stretches I spotted a helicopter ahead. Beside it a man with his arm in a sling hobbled toward me. Ethan's soft laugh brushed my ear. "Good thing your taste has improved this time, your husband's rich and he loves you. Zoe, be happy. May you never meet someone like me again." With that he vanished into the curtain of rain. Adrian's greatest joy is making money. Even Hawthorne teases him, "Have you fallen into a vault and can't climb out?" He thinks they don't get it. In college he tried dating like everyone else. It bored him. What was there to talk about with women? Lipsticks, handbags, perfume. So he began building startups, watching project after project attract attention. The thrill of business beat everything else. When his mother pressured him to meet yet another prospective bride, Adrian for once spoke his mind. "Mom, I don't think I like women." Hawthorne's teacup hit the floor. "Son, don't scare me like that." He even wondered if he were gay, but the moment some guy puckered up in a club Adrian's fist clenched. Disgusting. Realizing he didn't like men either, he surrendered to family arrangements. Keeping a wife was just another expense he could afford. Oddly, his bride donated to a temple every time she ordered a new mold. He couldn't decide whether she felt guilty or had accidentally flirted with a monk. He didn't care, until year-end audit forced him to notice. Later, injured on a business trip, he relocated to Kingsport for physical therapy. Outside the rehab room a girl in a white dress drifted past. Innocent yet seductive. In that instant, Adrian discovered he did like women, he just hadn't met his type. He snapped at his assistant, 5 minutes. I want that woman's file. The assistant rolled his eyes. Hawthorne, stop fooling around, that's your wife. Adrian stared. My wife? The assistant sighed. Can you be original? Every time it's love at first sight, with the same person. Few people know Adrian is face blind. The assistant opened Zoe's TikTok. The missus is into pure sexy lately, no wonder you didn't recognize her. And you almost chased the wrong cousin. Good thing we fixed it or you'd be begging at a crematorium. Just then the girl walked over, a bouquet of daisies in hand. The assistant's voice dropped to a whisper. Boss, I think I need a sabbatical, agreed? Watching her approach, Adrian ground out, take it, 1 month. The girl stopped before him, tone gentle. Hubby, is your foot better? He'd actually injured his hand, but when she asked, his foot started to ache. Adrian's gaze fluttered, cheeks burning. She called me hubby. Thanks for listening. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this story? If you liked it, double tap and share. Tell us your thoughts in the comments, subscribe for more, and see you next time.